excited about this event tonight, and I have a few words about our speaker. So Helen co-founded the American Institute of Alternative Medicine in 1990. The school offers accredited programs in acupuncture, massage therapy, and nursing. She teaches Tai Chi and Qigong at AIAM and at various martial arts camps and seminars in the US and abroad. She's co-founder of, is it Opawl? The Ohio Progressive Asian Women Leadership, and is on the board for the Lesbian Business Association. She served as past president on the board for the Pacific Association of Women Martial Arts, past vice president for Stonewall Columbus, and board member for State and the Arts Theater Company. And since 2020, she serves on the Columbus Community Relations as a commissioner. She's been recognized for her achievements by the International Role Model magazine, featured in Columbus CEO, and won various awards in martial arts, very accomplished. And her grandfather started the Far East restaurant, which became Wings. And she's a graduate of Bishop Hartley and Ohio Dominican University. So please welcome Helen Yee.
Thank you so much for that introduction. So yeah, I wanted to, I approached Bexley Library because I have a lot of deep roots here in Columbus. Originally I was born in Hong Kong, and I came here at the age of 2. So, but my grandfather, he started one of the very first Chinese restaurants here in Columbus, and actually in Bexley, and it was called the Far East Restaurant. And you know, I don't know exactly how many years it was in Bexley, but they ended up having to move it because of some kind of liquor ordinance, like, you know, they couldn't serve liquor. So of course, as smart as my grandfather and his business partner was, Walter, they moved the restaurant like right on the borderline of Bexley, so they'd be in Columbus, which I think is genius, because if you own a restaurant and you don't have a liquor license, it's gonna be really rough. So that's what they did, and that restaurant was the Far East until for 30 years they were together, that they owned the Far East, but then they split, and Walter stayed at the location where the Far East is, which is now called Wings Restaurant. So has anyone ever eaten there? Yeah. It's been around. And they actually have one of the best Scotch whiskeys there in like the country. So kudos to Danny, you know. Anyhow, Kenny, I'm sorry. Kenny, and then he's like a distant cousin. And then my grandfather opened Yee's restaurant on Broad Street. And now it's called Billy Lee's, because none of us kids wanted to take it on. There's a lot of work. My parents and my grandparents worked really, really hard at the restaurant business. And so when it came time to pass it on, none of us were like, you know. So that's kind of where some of my roots are. And then also I went to St. Catharines. Anybody know where St. Catharines is? Yeah, it's on Fair Avenue. And then I went to Bishop Hartley and Ohio Dominican College, which is now Ohio Dominican University. Actually, one of my college mates is here, Amy. It used to be Amy Bango, but now she's Amy Bango Farkas, right? With her lovely daughter here. So, but going back to my book, my reason for writing it came from the pandemic, actually. So this is my very first book that I've written, and I really wanted to write down my stories, because honestly, I'm getting older and I'm forgetting details of things that people are saying, oh, you should write a story or do a play or something with that incredible story. And so I'm like, okay, because of the pandemic, I had lots of more time to do something, and I thought, why not write a book and tell my story? And also, I wanted to signify something that's going to define Asian resilience, because the increase of Asian violence had increased during the pandemic. So this was my way of kind of expressing the importance of our diversity here. And so that's the reason why I wrote the book. And you know what? You can ask questions at any time for me. So I'm not worried about that. So that's why I wrote the book, and I believe that for me to write it at this time, it took me 2 years, but I wanted it published at a significant period, and that was this year in May, which is Asian Heritage Month. So everything is tied in to how much I wanted to represent the culture and telling and sharing a story of an Asian immigrant coming from Hong Kong and experiencing bullying and racism at a very young age, because, you know, when I was growing up, I never knew I was that different. And, you know, Mom used to take us to her friend's house and play mahjong all night long, you know. We wouldn't get home till 6 in the morning. And all of the kids they looked like me, talked like me, ate the same foods. Everything looked fine until I went to school. And here I'm like, oh my God, I look so different, you know? And it just terrorized me. And so, you know, one of the things at St. Catherine's, I was hanging onto my mom's leg for dear life. I wanted out of there, and you know, she's dragging me, you know, and I'm trying to just stay with her like a barnacle. And so I knew at that time that I was scared. I was a scared little girl, and didn't know how to handle it. But I look back at that moment, and I realized that my energy got shifted. I was a very confident, very self-secure little girl until I realized how different I looked among a lot of other kids. And so that's when I believe that's when the bullying and the racism started. And, you know, I was angry too. I was angry at my parents for bringing me to this country and, you know, experiencing racism and bullying, you know, directed towards me. So that kind of like was, wow, you know. But it wasn't until I realized that, well, here's the thing. My brothers were 10 years older than me, I know. And they went to Eastmore High School. We all know Eastmore. Back in the day when Archie Griffin was there, right? But the way they dealt with their racism directed towards them, I mean, they got beat up every day. They had it worse than I did. I was a girl. But they joined gangs. So that's how they got their belonging, you know, through joining gangs. One day, my brother picks me up. A friend of his was driving, and I was coming to the car, and he noticed that I had been crying. And he lets me in, and he goes, what's wrong? I said, nothing. And he goes, you don't cry for nothing. Tell me what happened. So I told him about this bully has been making fun and racist jokes and just making fun of me every day at school. So he's like, point him out to me. It's like, oh, wow. So I do, and he goes, hey, you. And the kid comes over, he's walking, and he doesn't notice anything until he sees me in the back seat. Then he's like, you know, his whole face just turned white. And my brother just said to him, you know, if you make fun of my sister ever again, I'll kill you. And that was it. It stopped the bullying. And one of the things that why I share that story is that sometimes you just need to take a stand. And regardless of, you know, I've been asked by lots of people, well, how can we help? You know, you talk about the racism against Asians at this time now in this present time, what can we do? And I say, well, you can definitely be an ally. You know, we need allies. We need somebody, if you see something, say something. Okay, if you see something, say something. Because when they see that, you know, you have people that are supporting you, that is what gives us strength and power as a collective, okay, in our community. And then, you know, the Asian restaurants, a lot of them got hurt, went out of business because people's fear of, you know, the Asian flu or whatever you call that, you know, kind of thing that was going on. So supporting Asian restaurants, eating, even if you take carry out, you know, all these other things you can do. Vote. Use your financial support too. I mean, we want to make sure that everybody is accepted because our diversity is what makes us strong. Yeah? So we all kind of agree on that. So that's where, that was the other incentive to write this book, you know. Any questions so far? I'm going to test you guys later. Yeah.
So when you decided to write your book, have you had any taken writing classes in college, or would you just say, I'm gonna tell my story and just tell us about becoming a writer?
Yeah, thank you
Just
for
from
that.
the introduction that I read online, it seemed like you came from a really different background than being a writer.
Yeah, so I never thought of myself as a writer. And honestly, the stories, like I said, I wanted to preserve the details. And so a lot of times I would write like in a journal or something to just keep track of how I can tell a story and not lose the actual details of things, especially with my mom's relationship and all of her cultural superstitions and our clashing and so forth. And so those are things that I treasure, telling a story. And so the thing was, Lisa Ferrero is here, and she actually is a spiritual, the spiritual founder of So-Called Global, and she does these interviews for people that have made outstanding contributions into the world. And one of the workshops was a writing workshop by Christy Hardwick. And so I took that class just out of, you know, it's the pandemic, you know, why not get educated somehow? And so that was what gave me the motivation and the inspiration to, hey, let's write a book. I've got 2 years, I'm not doing anything. And so I hope I answered your question in some way. Yeah, so thank you for that. Anybody else have any questions? Going once, okay. So, one of the things, I'm sorry, I keep blanking out on this. So a lot of my life is very involved in the martial arts, okay? I have had lots of training in all different disciplines, but mainly in Taekwondo, which is a Korean style martial arts. And so it wasn't until I started to take martial arts that I started to feel comfortable in my own skin. It was a game changer for me. I boosted my confidence level, developed, got strengthened. I just felt more assured of myself. The way I walked was different. And it wasn't just because of the physical, you know, I learned some mad skills, man. Yeah, and so, but it wasn't just that. If you think martial arts is all about the physical fighting, karate, kicking, chopping, you know, jump kicks and things like that, it's not. Martial arts teaches you important virtues in life. And that's what kind of allowed me to be able to carry myself confidently, is to learn all the virtues and also, you know, that whole aspects of what the martial arts encompasses, okay? We have any martial artists in here? No? Okay. Well, so I can't fight anyone. I'm just kidding. And you know, martial arts is very much from the Asian culture. So even when I first started, my first tournament I walked in, I was just a yellow belt. It's a beginner's belt. And I wasn't wearing my uniform, but because I was Asian, people were bowing to me. You know, I was like, hey, this is really cool. I think I'll stick with it. It's because you know, the reverence, the respect, the honor that it came from, you know, the Asian world and so forth. But it was very interesting that my mom and I clashed because I told her I wanted to take martial arts, and I idolized Bruce Lee. He was my mentor. My mom was like, Bruce Lee? Oh my God, no. I go, yeah, why, Mom? It was because Bruce Lee grew up on the same street as her in Kowloon, Hong Kong. Yeah, and he was a brat. He would run by them, and they're in their school uniforms, and he would just throw chow su bao at them, which is a barbecued pork bun, and get their uniforms all dirty, and then just run off. He was just a brat. And Mom was just in shock that I would consider him as one of my mentors, you know. But I said, the guy is, you know, he's a guru here. He's making it here in America. And I want to emulate that in some way. So I trained really hard. I trained a lot. And I got to a point, you know, I was competing heavily in national and international competitions, up to being a 2-time national gold medal champion. Yeah, thank you. Oh, I didn't mean to applaud. she was doing this, so. And, you know, also being an Olympic alternate on the 1988 Taekwondo Team. Thank you. Yeah, that was. Yeah, what's that? Shooting. And a silver medalist in the World Games. So this was my achievements in the martial arts as a fighter, okay? But martial arts gave me more than that. And so, like I said, my mom and I had some major clashes. And I want to share with you that she had a lot of superstitions that I just did not want to embrace. You know, I was trying to fit in as a little girl. Okay, how am I going to fit in? I don't want to get beat up. I don't want to look different, but I can't change how I look. So I started joining teams. So I joined like softball team, basketball teams, you know, anything, because I was good at sports. I was fast. I could climb trees faster than anybody you know, all kinds of stuff. So I was very athletic, naturally. And when, you know, when Mom would say, you need to embrace your Asian culture, I'm like, oh, please, you know, you're not going to school and being made fun of every day, you know. So there is some huge contrast between us on that. And her best way of doing, you know, thank God for her, she would take us back to Hong Kong to try to have us as a reminder of where we came from, all right? Well, one day, one trip, she took us when I was like 9. My young brother was 7, and we ran out on the balcony. We saw these school kids in their uniforms, and we had chow su bao, and we were pelting them with them. So it's kind of came full circle. Never told her that, but you know, so it was just a lot of different things. I'll tell you a little story. I don't want to really read off of it. If you really want to know all the details, buy the book. Shameless plug. But there was a moment, where's Linda? That she was very, very sad because my young brother was not having a whole lot of luck in his life, and he got into some really terrible drugs and just lost, you know, he was lost. I think, hey Linda. Oh, didn't mean to call you out there. It's my friend Linda. And so her best friend said to her, Elaine was her name, Elaine, no. And she owned the Shangri-La on Cleveland Avenue many years ago, if anyone's eaten there. Oh yeah. The best Chinese food ever, right? Back in the day. And Elaine was saying to her mom, well, there's this fortune teller, and she lives in Chicago, and we should go see her because she'll tell you, you know, what's going on. And Mom never believed in that kind of stuff. She's like, oh God, okay. Just to appease her best friend, they drive to Chicago. They meet this woman who's basically a dishwasher at a Chinese restaurant, would not accept money because she believed that her gift was a gift from, the divine source, God, and so forth. So she looks at Mom and she says, well, because Mom said, why is my youngest son so unlucky in life? And the fortune teller just looked at her and said, it's because of your dead son's spirit is haunting him, because he's jealous that he didn't get to live. Well, that was the convincing moment my mom believed, because she never told anyone about this other son that had passed. So of course she comes back and she says to me, and at the time I was with my partner Diane, and she comes up to us and she says, okay, and she pulls out this notebook with a whole bunch of things on it that needs to be bought and things to do and so forth. I'm like, okay, what's going on here? And she says, we need to do a ghost wedding. Has anyone heard of a ghost wedding? Anybody? Okay, well, you have, yes. It's still very popular in China to this day. I mean, there's lots of money involved too. Like some families will pay $50,000 to find a ghost. But you know this. and to find a bride, a spirit bride, for another spirit groom or whatever. So the negotiation is happening in this physical realm, but the whole ceremony is done to appease the spirits so that they would, live happily ever after. So Mom comes home and she's like, okay, we need to find a bride for, this dead spirit. And I'm like, okay, Mom, how do we do that? And so there's this whole ritual. I don't know if I should tell you guys because I don't want to take away too much from the book. Some of you guys who have read it, though, know the whole thing. And some of my close friends here and my partner here know. But we finally found a match because the deity gods have to approve of the match. And there's a whole funny occurrence that has to happen in order for this to be approved. And then we had to buy all the stuff for it. Actually, Diane had to. And Diane's all mad at me, saying, why do I have to buy it? Mom goes, because the daughter has to buy the stuff. Kind of like, in real life here, right? Is there like some ritual where, the family of the bride has to buy everything? Is that still true today?
That's right.
Okay. I wasn't sure because, I've never been married, but, so Diane was not happy with that because she had to pay for everything. And, and again, this whole bride thing, the ghost wedding, is very interesting to read about because it's fascinating. I was fascinated by it, and then I did my own study about it. I was like, oh my God, it still happens. It's still happening. So that's another story that's in the book. I will tell you the final part where we're getting ready for the ceremony to happen. This is in the middle of December here in Columbus, Ohio. And we get everything arranged, everything's placed, everything's going. I see Mom over there, and she's getting on her winter coat. She's putting it on. I'm like, Mom, where are you going? We're getting ready to start this ceremony. And she goes, oh, I don't believe in this stuff. I'm Catholic. And she walks out. And I'm like, what? What? So, that's kind of a funny moment. And she just drove around the block, waiting for us to be finished with this ritual that she had gotten all of us involved in. Yeah. Any questions so far?
Did it work?
Oh my God, yes. It actually worked. That's a good question. So my brother, after a couple weeks after that ceremony, he found a job, he moved out of the house, he had a girlfriend, he bought an apartment, or rented an apartment, and all was happily ever. And I told Mom, you know what, if they get a divorce, I am not going to be a part of that. So yeah, it worked. It's weird. Any other questions?
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
How do you handle this difference between you and your mom? Since it looks like you pretty much grew up in America, right? But your mom came from Hong Kong.
Yes.
I'm sure she thinks differently. As Asian parents, they always expect their kids to be number one, no matter what you do. Sport, academics, everything, right? So how do you handle the difference?
Well, I love that question because it brings me on to another story about the fact that, my mom and dad and my grandparents, they worked so many hours at the restaurant that basically it was my older brothers that kind of took care of us. And so I became my own, I think you're referring to like a helicopter mom? Is that it?
Yeah,
Did-
like a
Tiger mom. Yes, of course. Thank you, Chopin.
I'm not a tiger mom.
After you see Johnny, no. So it's a term called tiger mom, and it's your mother, an Asian mother, pushing their kids to excel to like the top of their game, whether it's in sports or academics or you name it. And so my mom was not like that. The thing that only my dad demanded or wanted one of us kids to graduate from college. So there's a lot of wiggle room there. And so that's how that all happened. But I became my own tiger mom. I really pushed myself to excel, especially in the martial arts. And so, my mom didn't even know about the Olympic thing because she didn't give it she didn't think it was the Olympics, because it wasn't until her friends would say, "Oh my gosh, Helen being an Olympian, an Olympic alternate, that is amazing." She's like, "Huh?" Because it was on the news and I was being interviewed by some of the Channel 6, Channel 4. And she still did not recognize the fact that it was the Olympics. I mean, she knows about the Olympics, who doesn't? But she just thought it was a name of a tournament that I was in that was more, regional or something. So, thank you for that question. Did I answer it pretty much? Okay. All right. Anybody else? Yeah.
There weren't that many young girls in martial arts back then, were there?
Right. Probably less than, maybe a handful. And Master Che, has anyone heard of Oriental Martial Arts College here in Columbus? So I trained with him since I was 17 to, as an adult. And he just recently passed away. So I give my great reverence to him and honor him because of how much the opportunity that I had to be able to achieve what I did through the martial arts. He was a great coach, a great teacher, and he was the very first coach who actually trained 5 Olympians to go to be on the U.S. Taekwondo team. But it was very rare that there were women in the martial arts at that time. And, you still had the whole thing where you had to, prove yourself 10 times more. Any other questions? Okay. Yeah.
Helen, what would the child say to parents today? Seeing yourself different or seeing yourself 40, what would the child say today to parents to look for or be aware of, or how to handle that?
What would
you could say to parents today?
Oh, to parents today.
From my perspective.
Yeah.
From my childhood, this is what I would say to you. So if you're a parent raising a child that's in the LGBTQ community, or a minority, any different religion, race, anything.
So I'm a hat trick. I check mark on LGBTQ, Asian, immigrant, and being a woman, lesbian, so forth. So I love that question. I think like I said, I had a real hard time because I didn't know actually what to do as a child, but also being able to, it was sports, it was getting involved at a young age to doing participation things so that I could build relationships with my teammates. Or I was even a cheerleader, believe it or not. And I was in the drill team, you know. It was just, yeah. And it's one of the things that I would advise is that get involved. Get involved. Not everybody's gonna like you, but so what? At this point, you know, if you're doing something of a sports team, for example, you're gonna rely on your teammate, you know, to get the goal or whatever. And so you build this natural connection with people striving for the same goal. And you're going to build friendships out of that. And if you know, it's one of the best ways to do that. Whether it's team sports or other kind of group things, you know, academic things even, or just get yourself involved. I'm still getting myself involved. I love getting involved with things that are passionate and dear to my heart. So those things about like being on boards and taking an active role in different organizations, that still feeds my soul. Not to just belong, but to make an impact on the LGBTQ community or the Asian American community, or, you know, you name it. And I still, you know, I honor the fact that all the things that I'm interested in, there are things that I can do, you know. Does that answer your question a little bit? Okay, great. Any more? Hey.
Because in the Asian culture, I would assume being part of the LGBTQ plus community is something that's hard for parents to accept. How did your brothers and did your parents ever know before their passing of your sexuality? And how about your brothers? And do you think that made your coming out harder?
Yeah. She hit it on the nail. So it is not very accepting in the Asian community to be gay. But, you know, you can hide a lot growing up being gay. And the way that I came out to my folks, it took me off guard. I ended up falling in love with a woman and realizing that I wanted to be with her at the time because it was this eye-opening realization of who I really am. And so I was visiting this person after a national tournament, and she invited me to stay. She lived in Florida, and I stayed there for the summer. And then my intention was to come back and finish college. I only had 1 semester to go. And Amy's going, "Where have you been?"
She just was gone.
Yeah, I was just gone. But I came home, and I just said to, I didn't really actually, by words, tell Mom or my dad that I was gay. But I did tell Dad, I told Mom I'm going back to Florida. I'm not going to finish school right now. And yeah, of course she was disappointed, but she didn't say much. It was Dad that was going to be the tough one to talk to. So I sat by Dad and I said, you know, I don't want to go back to school right now, but I will eventually. Right now I have to do something for myself. And I need to move back, I need to go back to Florida. And his realization, I think, was twofold, because one, he realized I was the only chance of one of his kids graduating college. And I just threw him a wrench, like you would not believe. Here I am 1 semester away from a degree. And second, I think, of course, he had to have known. This woman came up with me, and I'm going back down with her. So I didn't really have to say it in words, but he knew, and his reaction was he pretty much didn't want to talk to me. It was it. And you know. And unfortunately, he did pass away before I could come back, finish college, and, you know, everything. But I did come back after he passed away. I finished my semester, got my degree at Ohio Dominican. Shameless plug there. And yeah, so did I answer everything?
Yeah, how about your mom and your brothers? Or just,
Yeah,
or
so
just
my-
in the community in general?
My
I think
mom.
It's hard for people to
yes.
live their authentic
Yeah.
life.
So here's my mom's reaction. So now she knows I'm gay. Well, a nephew of mine made a gay joke. Oh, she was all over him. I mean, she defended me to the tilt, and not even defending me, just said, you know, you should not say those things, you know. And so I knew mom was, you know, open and accepting of that. And then my brothers, my oldest brother especially, he kind of did not want me to hang out with my niece anymore. But this was very short-lived, because I think it was his wife that talked to him and said, you know what, you can't do that, you know. She's not going to turn her gay. So yeah. And I think mom also lost some friends of hers because of that reason. But my mom was she was a badass. She really was. There was one time she was like, I don't know where we were, but she was oh my God, she was such a chain smoker. And she was smoking, she put it out, but then there was a guy that came over, and she was sitting down, the guy's standing up, and he's talking like this, waving his cigarette near her face. And she says to me, she goes, if he burns me, so help me, I'm going, I go, Mom, I'm not going to do your fighting for you. So, but, you know, God love her. She really did support me. And even though we had our conflicts and our contrasts and different kinds of things, we fought for some of the stupidest things too. One day she came home. I have to tell this story, Lisa. She comes home and she says, I saw a man he was just a head. I said, okay, Mom, what do you mean? You mean a head with like a trunk? No, he was just a head. I said, Mom, he can't be just a head. I said, he's got to have a lungs, heart, you know, all this stuff. And we're having this stupid argument. And I said, well, maybe he didn't have arms and legs. I said, no, he was just a head. So 3 months before she passed. So that happened 3 months ago. She passed. I'm driving down High Street towards the Short North, and here comes this person on like a gurney on wheels, and all you can see is his head on a pillow, and he's using his like a driving stick, and he's maneuvering this cart that he was on, and all you could do was see his head. So Mom got the last laugh, and you know, so of course I burst into tears knowing that she was right. No, I'm just, but you know, it was just little things like that, which was, you know, that's why I have to write these things down, because I didn't want to lose all these stories, you know, and there's many more stories in here, but I don't know what time it is. Can anyone tell me?
7:42.
I wanted to share a little bit of the book, so I'm going to read from the first chapter. The reason why I picked it is because I knew that I wanted to get something that would grab people's attention, and I guarantee you this will grab your attention, this first chapter. And I don't even complete it because I want you to finish going through all the other chapters to find out what happens at the end. So it loops back around at the end of the book. So, are there any other questions so far? No? All right, I feel like a teacher up here. Any other questions? All right, so this is just a short excerpt from the first page. And it's titled, actually, The Best Fight is No Fight by Bruce Lee. I actually had to get a permission to get that quote from the Bruce Lee organization. All right, so, let's see if eyes are not great. Cars line both sides of my street. I pull into my driveway, a car drives past. I check that I have my phone on me. I pull my keys from the ignition to retrieve the guitar from the back seat. I press the button on my keys to unlock the back doors. Suddenly, the front passenger door flies open. A man in a hoodie invades the seat next to me. A bandana over his face and mouth. He's very physically fit, bigger and stronger than me. At 4'11", I'm no match for him.
May I have your attention, please? The library closes in 15 minutes.
Uh-oh.
Please check out all library materials before exiting the building. Thank you.
I'll be done by then.
It's okay. And it's okay if we say low down.
Okay. Well, yeah. So, I need you to drive me somewhere, he says, calm as can be. Then I see the gun pointing at me. Oh my God. My whole being sinks to the ground. There's no time to panic. I'm a 3rd-degree black belt. What's my strategy? Okay, I say. I am not going anywhere with him, my strategy says. The butterflies calm. Suddenly, I know my plan. Instantly, I feel centered, at peace. Whatever happens is going to happen right here in my neighborhood. Then I look at him. Hey, I know you. It totally startles him. He's trying to disguise his identity. No, you don't. Yeah, you're Darren's friend, I say. I don't even know a Darren. The comment totally flips him out. Meanwhile, my knee presses against the car door. Just drive, he says, more sternly. Okay, my strategy is to play along. I put the keys near the ignition. Abruptly, I launch myself out of the car and run. I'm small and fast. Use your voice, my head says. I'm not used to screaming. I've never had to do this. Even if there's nobody around, your screaming may startle the assailant enough to leave. In self-defense class, these are my words to students, my instructor's words to me. Finally, I find my voice. Help! Help! I scream. I dash to my neighbor's house across the street. I keep my eyes forward. I don't know where the masked man is. If he shoots me, it will be in my back, on my street, and I bang on the door. I don't wait for an answer. I then run to hide because I don't know where he is. The yard of my next-door neighbor offers no cover, but I see his car. Quickly, I flatten myself out and slide underneath. At least if the gunman is still chasing me, I'll be able to see his feet. Remembering my phone, I pull it out and dial another neighbor. No answer. Damn it! I hang up and shut off the screen, afraid it's illuminating my face, giving away my location. A moment later, I speed dial my business partner, Michelle. Hello? Yeah, call the police. I've just been held up at gunpoint. I hang up. I don't want the gunman to overhear me. In the movies, the good guys win and the bad guys get caught. The martial artist sleeps up into a series of gravity-defying kicks and punches, which incapacitates the bad guy, breaks his nose, and sends his gun skittering out of reach. But this is not a movie. It's real life in Columbus, Ohio, on a spring night. I'm hiding from a gunman who threatened me in my own car. My mind speeds through questions. What will happen next? Will I live to see another day? Will help arrive in time? There is still so much I want to do with my life. The only person who knows I'm in trouble may not even be sure where I called from. Home? Work? Or somewhere else? In the adrenaline rush, I forgot to tell her my location. I know Michelle well enough to know that she will call the police. We'd been through a lot together. Life, love, and business. And we had a good relationship. Under my neighbor's car, all sense of time vanishes. I don't know if anyone else heard my screams. I haven't seen any trace of the gunman for what seems like a long time. I strain my ears for approaching footsteps, for any telltale signs indicating I am not alone. My focus is laser sharp, and I only want to get through this. Of all the wild and daring adventures I've had across the globe, up to this point, it's ironic that I'm facing death in my own neighborhood within yards of my front door. Did he target me because I projected some sense of vulnerability? Or was I just some random woman? Did he choose me because of the way I look? So you have to read the rest. Thank you. Any questions?
Did you get killed?
I'll
obviously I survived, and actually he's serving 19 years in prison. Pretty cool. He had done this to 19 other women, or 20, I can't remember, and he escalated to sexual assault because he was getting away with it so much. And he had believe it or not, an ankle monitor on him. So he was only permitted to go to his house and to work, but he would get off radar. And one of the things I asked the detective is, well, how come, what's going on with this ankle thing, how come they did? He says, well, the public doesn't know this, but it's more like a GPS in a way that if he goes out of range, but if he comes back into range, then he's okay. They didn't realize that when he was going out of range, he was like holding women up at gunpoint. So, pretty scary situation. And actually, it got a lot of national news because the next day, Connie Schultz, everybody know who she is, right? She's a Pulitzer Prize-winning, journalist who's married to Sherrod Brown. And I got a call from her the next day, and she says, hi, I'm Connie Schultz. You may not know me, but I'm married to Sherrod Brown, and I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. And I said, you know what, it's a good thing. I'm Democrat. So she said, I want to do a specific national syndicated article on your story. I think it could help a lot of women. And I was like, oh, wow. Yeah, sure. So she interviewed me for like 45 minutes. Next thing, it goes out, and it goes viral. I was getting responses from people in the Netherlands, Japan, Europe, everywhere, that self-defense experts that have dedicated their lives to teaching self-defense to women, and also martial arts experts. So a lot of them that said, your incident and how you reacted is everything we teach in our self-defense classes. And several of them said that we use your story to start the classes, because it's like you hit on like 5 of the things that we teach, screaming for help, and staying calm, because there's no way I was going to do anything physical, because he's got this gun pointed to my head. Really, the playing field was not fair game. And I'm looking, and I'm realizing that I'm not going to be able to get out of this situation in a physical defense. And so I had to outsmart him. And one of the things, my self-defense technique was to lie to him, like I knew him. But it gave me precious seconds to put my knee up against the door and push myself out. The other thing, I had to find my voice. And I tell women self-defense classes, I say, that was probably the hardest thing for me to do that night, because I'm not used to just screaming. So do it. Like, do it in the car when you're alone, on the freeway or something, just scream, just find your voice so that you feel comfortable being able to use it as a weapon or as a way to escape danger, So these are really practical things to do. And Connie Schultz had told me that because of your advice about keeping your cell phone on you, not in your purse, not in the glove compartment or wherever where you can't grab it, she says, now I keep my cell phone on me all the time, because now you can use it as to get help. Also your key chain, a lot of modern keys, car keys, they have an alarm on them, right? Okay. If I would have remembered that, I would have preached the heck out of that. Did you have a question, Mary? Oh.
No, but I do know that you've been talking about this. I was just wondering, did you testify, and how was that?
Oh yeah, I was going to testify, but
because I'm sure it was difficult, the situation you went through, but then to actually sit there and meet somebody, how was that?
yeah, so the thing was, we were going to all night, like a lot of the women were going to testify. We had a whole group of people that were going to testify against him. He decided to represent himself, which was like the stupidest thing ever. And so it just really kind of incriminated him even more. But it's really cool, because even though I was very few women in some of my martial arts schools, the guys, they said, when you go to court, we want to be there. And so I was just floored at the support I was getting, you know. But it never went to court, which I was really kind of happy about that. I didn't want to see him again. You know, one of the things, the police came, they approached me and said, can you identify him? I go, no, I don't want to be near him that night. Because I was still, my adrenals were shot and I could barely stand. And I went into my neighbor's house, the one that didn't pick up the phone. I still tease her to this day. I said, oh my gosh, I just want everyone to go away. I don't want the news out there. And all the news people were there. But then I heard something in my head that says, you gotta tell your story. You have to tell your success story. So I went back out and I told my story. So it's another little tidbit of self-defense that, you know, we want to support so that people know that there are, you know, there's hope, there's, you know, there's successes out there. You know, the news doesn't want to tell about the successes, although this one was a success, so it was kind of cool. Any other questions? This is great.
May I have your attention, please?
Hey, right on time.
Please check out all library materials before
I have
exiting.
a question.
Yeah.
So if you know, I know you said your dad passed away
Yeah.
when you were in Florida. If you could have a conversation with him today, what would you like to share with him?
Wow, that's a really good one, Mary. I think my conversation with him is that I'm really sorry that I didn't graduate at the time that I did when he was alive, but I'm really glad that I followed my heart, because I knew that that was something that was missing, or it wasn't connecting to the fact that there was something else there that I didn't know about myself. And so of course I wanted to follow it to the degree that I did, and to sacrifice the dreams of my dad to follow my dreams, and my being able to be true to my own self. To thy own self be true, another book. But it's just that, you know, unfortunately he passed away, you know. But I know he loved me. I know he loved me with all of his heart. And I think it was just too much for him to get that, you know, the cultural thing. You know, even when I made a trip to China, I befriended some college students over there, and I was trying to tell them about my partner being a woman, and they did not understand. They didn't get the concept at all. They actually told me that, oh, that doesn't exist. I said, people are getting married over here. It exists. So, and you know, it's just not something of a concept in a lot of people's minds sometimes. Yes.
I had a question about your Qigong practice now and your grandfather's influence.
Oh my gosh, yes.
And like how you recognized that in you and the transition from the yang martial arts to the yin. Like when did that shift happen?
Yeah. Great question. So, people that know about martial arts, there's the Taekwondo and Karate and Kung Fu systems, which is more of the physical abilities and excelling in the kicking and punching and blocking and stuff like that, and jump kicks and so forth, which I loved. And so that's why the internal martial arts disciplines like Tai Chi, Qigong, and so forth, they weren't of interest to me, because I told my grandfather when I was even little, I said, that's for old people. I don't want that. So the transition happened because I was competing so heavily, and so much of my yang energy was developed in a really amazing way. It helped me get, you know, on the team and everything and compete, but I was getting depleted of my yin. So there's yang and yin energies in everything. It's replicated in nature, it's replicated in our system, our bodies, and so forth. And if one is out of balance of too much yang, for example, the yin gets depleted. And when that happened with me, my first Qigong master, we befriended each other in a martial arts conference, and she looked at me, she goes, Helen, your yin is very depleted. And, I'm like looking at her like, what? Huh? What do you? I didn't understand what she meant, but then it made sense because every competition I was getting strep throat before every competition. So I developed a weird pattern energetically that my stress levels would kick in and I would develop this pattern of strep throat. It was weird. But then I started doing the Qigong. I started learning Tai Chi and meditation practices. And I was able to replenish that yin to balance with my yang. And it was incredible to see that, I didn't allow things like season changes. A lot of people with allergies and stuff. It's because there's probably some kind of imbalance. And also, if I got invaded with a virus or bacteria or anything like that, I noticed that I wasn't being sick for 7 days. I was only sick for 3 days. And now I don't get sick anymore. It's really cool. I'm my own little COVID vaccine, I guess. Great question, Mary. Anybody else? Yes, Helen. I love your name.
Thank you. About the martial arts, I grew up in China, but I still don't know much about the martial arts. But we saw the movie in America, like the Chinese movie called Hero.
What is it? Hero?
I think Hidden Dragon, Crouching Tiger. Is that martial art in these movies? Are they real or that's something just made up?
So if you guys want to see me levitate, no, just kidding. Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. Okay, there is a lot of mythical things because they want the movie to succeed. So they see, you'll see some of these characters flying in the air. And the Chinese believe in qi so much that the qi for these characters is actually kind of a realistic goal or achievement to be able to fly. You see martial arts people that can, what do? They break 12 huge bricks with, just hitting it with their fist. That's qi. They develop their qi so magnificently, and the power of that qi broke through those. And you see them walking over fire or all these amazing abilities that look non-human. So, my mom used to love those kind of movies though. And of course I was the Bruce Lee, the Ip Man, and, those other kinds of movies. So, of course there was some exaggeration, but look at all of the exaggeration movies here in America. We're talking about the Marvels and stuff like that. Yeah, so. Any other questions?
Helen, I just have,
Yeah, hey.
I'm Helen's friend from college, and we didn't see each other for many years. She told me when she was leaving for Florida, she came back. I happened to be working at Ohio Dominican. We saw each other and then didn't see each other for 35 years. And a friend of mine saw her somewhere, and we became reacquainted. We found out now we live 2 blocks from each other. When she told me about this book, I thought, I'm reacquainted with this old friend, so I'm gonna read it. I'm gonna buy it. I'm gonna read it. And so I asked for a birthday present. I bought it, and I couldn't put it down. She's very modest about her accomplishments. She is in a band. She's written a play. She's started a wildly successful school. And I just think for the young people there, I think what a motivation it is to have someone. What did I do in the pandemic? I don't know. I watched television. I don't know. Just a really wonderful story of grit. And I think that I'm not her hype woman. I get no commission, but it really made a difference to my life. That's why I had my daughter come tonight. So I just want to say there's so much more to the story. And anytime you read, you're like, oh, she never played an instrument before, but now she's in a band and she's playing the bass. Oh, she told someone the story about the ghost, and now she's written a play. And so I just would say it's a really remarkable story.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Wow. Well, I don't even know. I don't want to go after that. I have some books over there, and I have Halloween candy there too. Hey, just saying. Thank you so much for coming tonight. I'm very honored. Thank you to the Bexley Library, Whitney, for